Anybody want some free questions to ask? I've got them right here. Anybody? Questions you can ask tonight that might be important to you? I've got 100 questions you can ask. Anybody want a copy? Take one, pass it down. Pass it back.
Have one?
No, I got this.
Very intrigued.
Do you want to pass these along to these players? People that are involved in it.
Oh, okay, so it's already standard.
Pass these along.
You guys can just go over one at a time for us.
You have enough space. Yeah, there's some literature for y'all at the front.
All right, everyone. Can you guys hear me okay?
Oh, no.
Mic's on.
Yeah, did you turn the button?
Got a green light. Got a green light. Testing, testing. How about now? Oh yeah, that's much better. Okay, a little too good. Hi everyone. So welcome to the STV INC Town Hall. We appreciate all of you for coming out and engaging in this process with us. This is a very important decision we have to make as a community. And so our goal as the Incorporation Committee has been to give the voters a choice. This community has never been able to decide their own future, and we think this is a great way to do that. And so part of that process is engaging with you. You would have been handed some cards when you came in, or was on your seats with some pens. Feel free to answer those, and then Laura, if you want to raise your hand real quick, you can just give those to Laura, and she will read those off after the presentation is concluded. So go ahead and hand those to her, and then we'll answer your questions. It's just a way that we can get through all the questions. There's a lot of you guys here tonight, and we want to give everyone a chance to have their questions answered. First, I'd like to do some introductions. So my name is Tyler Hudgens. I am on the committee for the Santan Valley Incorporation effort. I'm the chairman. What I do for work is I'm a pastoral resident at a church. I lead an 18 to 30-year-old young adult ministry. And I'm interested in seeing Incorporation because I want to see this area flourish. And I feel like in a lot of ways it's been overlooked, and this is the way that we can do that. So with that, I'm going to pass it to Adrian.
Hi, I'm Adrian Litton. I am on the Incorporation Committee. I've been doing this effort for almost 2.5 years. Yes, sir?
Introduction.
Yeah, I've lived here for 6 years in Santan Valley. I am professionally, I am a geographer. I am a consultant to highway departments, and I help highway departments figure out how to manage their assets. When I moved to Santan Valley, there was about 80,000 people, and the roads were pretty clear, but there was a lot of development. A lot of exciting plans for some urbanized development in the north, a lot of exciting things going on in Indian Creek. But it didn't take too long before we started seeing a lot of commercial development or commercial property get rezoned to residential property, and kind of wondered why. And as those houses got built and more people moved in. Since I moved here, about 40,000 more people have moved in. The roads have not really been widened. They get basically impact fees to developers, develop and improve the road right in front of the development. And then the next development that comes along, the trucks for those developers are tearing up the road that was just improved. And so we've got a patchwork of road construction and new household development without a lot of commercial development in the area. And so why I got involved is that I have worked in community planning, development, and transportation for over 30 years. And no good urban development can happen without a solid urban development plan, and that's what we need to have. And we can't build one without actually becoming a municipality. The county has a rough plan for this area, but it's not being acted upon. So we have to take it upon ourselves to develop a plan and enact that plan. So that's why I'm involved in this.
Thank you, Adrian. My name is Diane Combs. I've lived in Santan Valley for 4 years with my husband. We retired here, so I'm currently not working. I was a retail executive for about 30 years. I'm also a mom. I just had my first grandchild, who's 3 months old, and I'm also a substitute teacher in Santan Valley. I had the opportunity to collect signatures, which is not originally why I got involved. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I had the opportunity to meet young families. I sat in the library 3 days a week, 2 to 3 hours a day to collect signatures. Many of our young families want to live and work in Santan Valley. The opportunity for young families to raise their kids here is great, but the parents often have to leave the community to go to work. They also want other amenities and places for their kids to play and grow and be safe. And many of the people who signed our petitions did not know that they were not incorporated. They also didn't know that they were not covered by safe fire insurance, etc. Why I got involved is that I couldn't believe that 100,000 residents were not incorporated and didn't have a building plan. And I would drive down Hunt Highway and nothing looked the same to me from the day I moved there to the 3 years later. I couldn't tell the difference. The building just kept happening, and it didn't look like it was strategic. So I'm hoping that we do, in fact, incorporate it in August. And I look forward really to the possibilities of this amazing community. But thank you for being here. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Jack Muller. I live in Johnson Ranch with my beautiful wife and my grandson. We moved here 5 years ago to be closer to my son and my grandson and granddaughters that live here. I got here and people say I'm a former politician from California. I was a mayor. So I got here and I started asking questions. Well, why don't we have this? Well, why don't we have that? You know, how do we get this? Who's running this show? Where's the plan? Why is the roads don't go through? So I started finding out that Arizona has a lot of odd laws and stuff about who can do what, when, and where. And so I had many conversations with our supervisor, and I was on with committees and stuff that lost battles with the supervisors over the apartments being built here. And myself and several other people that are on this committee all got together and said, let's form a group. Because that's what they kept telling us. If you don't like what's going on, incorporate. All right, well, so we took them at their word and we formed the committee. That's it. Got any other questions? Ask me afterward.
My name is Buchanan Davis. My wife and 4 children and I have lived in Santan Valley since 2009. And 2 reasons my motivation to get involved is to exert some local control over zoning and what that looks like. Sorry about that. So exert some local control over zoning, have a plan and see what we want to figure out as a future. And the other thing is I think there's I work for SRP doing government relations. I see a lot of municipalities who have a strong, loud voice, and they can advocate for their communities and their behalf, and it's effective. And we don't have that. And so for 100,000 people, we should have a lot larger political voice at the legislature and elsewhere. And we don't have that because we don't have a structure. And so that's another thing that I thought that was needed out here.
All right, so we're going to do the presentation, and then we'll have a special guest, Allen here. We'll introduce him later, but he's going to go through a presentation, and then we'll have some time for Q&A. The way I like to start these meetings is we're just normal people just like you. We live here. We experience the same things you experience. We have families. We're invested here. We want to see the area grow. We have jobs that we all do that's outside of this. This is completely volunteer. None of us are making any money. In fact, some of us are losing money through this process. And time, like there's sacrifices that's involved. For me to be here, I have to be away from my wife and my kids. And there's been a lot of time invested into this. And so that's just something I love to say up front, is just, we're just like you and want to see this community flourish. I'd like to start by sharing a story. A woman named Florence Chadwick was an incredible swimmer, and she swam across the English Channel as well as the Catalina Channel. And she was able to do this, English Channel back and forth twice. Just really incredible skill to be able to swim at that level. I go 1 lap on a pool and I'm like dying, one day she was trying to break one of her records and swimming across the channel. And as she was swimming out, a fog came in over the channel. And she wasn't, as she was stroking, she was unable to see even her hand in front of her face. And there's a boat with her team that's coming along with her. And she's several hours into this. And she stops and says, hey, I don't know that I'm going to be able to make it. And her team in the boat says, hey, you gotta keep stroking, keep going. You're gonna make it, just keep going. So she continues on. At the 15-hour mark, she stops again and says, guys, you gotta pull me out of the water. I'm not gonna make it. And so the team pulls her out of the water, brings her into the boat, and they start rowing the boat. And as they started rowing, the fog lifted, and she was a half a mile away from the land. She said afterwards to the reporters who were saying, hey, what happened out there? She said, I don't want to make any excuses, but if it wasn't for that fog, if I could have just seen the land in front of me as I was swimming, I promise you, I could have made it. I could have made it. She again did that same channel swim at a later time, and there was another fog that set over the channel. And her team said, hey, are you sure you want to do this? We know how this went last time. If you're not able to see the land, maybe you're not going to make it. She said, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to visualize that land in my mind the whole time as I swam. And she went ahead and did that. As she swam, she just kept picturing the land on the other side, despite the fog. And she made it. This incorporation effort for Santan Valley is facing a very similar story. We are not the first people to try to do this. And there's been many incorporation attempts that have gone before us of really great people who live here and have lived here that's wanted to see a better future for this area. And they did their best to make it happen, but there were outside interests that prevented it from being able to happen. Other communities around us, such as Florence and Apache Junction, vetoed previous incorporation efforts. George Johnson was one of the other people that was getting involved to prevent this from being able to happen. We'll talk about that later. Questions later. Let me finish my presentation. Thank you, sir. And so there's been other people who have attempted to prevent this from being able to happen. When this group here, we are part of a history of 15 years of trying to make this happen. We're just the next people. And our goal when we came together was to give you, the voters, a choice. Whether this thing wins or loses at this point on August 5th, the goal that we set out to do and accomplish was to give you the choice, to give us the choice to be able to decide the future. That's what August 5th is about. It's your ability to choose and decide for the future. Now, in our view, we have been we're half a mile away. July 9th, early ballots are going to drop. They're going to end up in your mailbox. August 5th, you have the chance to vote. We are at the point where we get to decide if this is going to happen. And in our view, and our belief, this is the best thing that could contribute to the flourishing of this area. This area has been overlooked. It's not been given the resources that it needs. The county has done the best that they can with 100,000 people to be able to manage this area while managing an area the size of Connecticut. It is our time now to say, hey, we're going to take it from here. We are going to make it to the other side. And we're going to start to do something for our future. We're going to start to do something for our families. We're going to start to do something with these issues that we're facing. And this is our chance to be able to do that. And that's what we're trying to do, and to be able to give you guys a chance. Some of the concerns that the committee has had as we come into incorporation there's 7 of them that we'll list here, and why we think incorporation matters and why it's important. Number 1, there's excessive residential development with no cohesive urban plan to be able to guide the area. There's being homes and homes being packed into this place. When we turned in our petitions, we turned in nearly 11,000 petition signatures. They stated it was the largest incorporation effort to ever happen in the history of this state. No community has ever been this large when we've incorporated. We'll be one of the largest in the country, if not the largest. It's well past time for this to happen. And because it hasn't happened, there hasn't been a plan to be able to guide this area and to do the right things that need to happen. And so we have this residential urban sprawl. There's a reason you don't have a place to sit down with your families at a restaurant. There's a reason why there's car washes on every corner. There's a reason why there's not enough commercial. There's a reason why the character of this area which you moved to is starting to erode. The things that you liked about it are eroding away. And part of that is through this lack of control. Part of it is a lack of a plan to be able to move this forward. The second reason, concern that we've had with this area is the loss of commercial land. Adrian touched on this a little bit earlier. We have one supervisor at the county level of 5. That supervisor is getting outvoted on multiple issues when it comes to this rezoning of commercial land. You have supervisors that live in Casa Grande and other parts of the county who are overruling the supervisor who lives here, who knows this area. So loss of commercial land. Strain on infrastructure. There's 2 major arteries that go in and out of Santan Valley. Ironwood Road, Hunt Highway are the main corridors. And 85 to 90% of our residents have to commute outside of Santan Valley for work. So when it comes to rush hour, you have 85% to 90% of people at varying times that are trying to get out of Santan Valley to go to work. All hitting the roads at the same time. It's no wonder that it's frustrating to drive on the roads and that people are angry, because there's all these traffic congestion, there's issues that are going on. And that's an area that we want to see fixed. We want to be able to put a transportation plan in place to develop more corridors for people to get in and out and have better planning. Number 4, there's not really places to come together as a community. Getting signatures was a challenge. Going door to door, it's a slow process. We have the library is one place you can go to, but there's not like these huge areas or parks or things that you can go to be able to meet your neighbors, to see people in the community. And so that's something where we want to see a sense of community, a sense of place. We want a home. The next one is inefficient public services for a population of our size. The public safety, there's things that we would like to see that is underserved in our area when it comes to fire, when it comes to police, trying to see those things addressed. There's other services. The county, there was an interview recently where one of the workers said, hey, we just can't keep up with the roads. We're trying our best, we just can't keep up. This area is growing so fast. It's the fastest growing place in the state, one of the top in the country. People are moving here in droves. And so we need public services for this area. Number 6, the county was not set up to maintain an area for this many people. We are over 100,000 people that live here in Santan Valley. They're projecting this area to grow to up to 300,000 people in the next number of years. Growth is coming, and we believe it's better to manage that growth and to have a local representatives and a local government that can start to address these things. The county, like I said, is managing area the size of Connecticut. And so it's difficult for them to be able to maintain and keep up. Number 7, and I already touched on this already, but public safety is understaffed. Our sheriff's office is understaffed. I've heard that there's like 5 officers at a time on a shift out. We don't have enough fire stations for the area this size. And so we want to see that public safety increased over time. And here's the value. This is the value of incorporation. We will get the ability to elect local officials who are more responsive to our community needs. Instead of having 5 supervisors with 1 representative that we can actually hold accountable, you can't hold the representative in Casa Grande accountable because you can't vote for him. You can't vote him out of office if you don't like what he's doing. We have 1. With Incorporation, you get 7. And you get 7 that live here, that know this area, that's invested in this area, and wants to see a difference, wants to see change, and is knowledgeable about it. You have people making decisions that don't have to drive these roads every day, that don't have to experience these things that we have to experience. The second one that was a value add is more control over land use, zoning, and development. We will be able to determine how we are going to move forward with our zoning. You'll have representatives that will be able to do that. The third thing is tax revenue dollars that are already collected can be spent locally. Our belief is that being unincorporated is the most wasteful and inefficient use of taxpayer money. There's over $50 million, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, every year is going to fund other cities and towns throughout our state. Those dollars aren't coming back here. If we incorporate those dollars that you guys are paying, that I'm paying, we'll be able to go to our area. Being able to retain, number 4, our community character and identity. With growth, the character and identity, the charm, and the things that we love about this area will change. And so this is going to change, and if you have proper planning, you can start to retain some of this. Start retaining the reasons why we moved here. Number 5, we can have authority over what level of services, public safety, water, and transportation will best serve our municipality. We'll be able to start to look towards the future to get the right public safety in place, how much we need and all that. Number 6, we'll create a comprehensive urban and transportation plan to guide our community. We can have a plan for our future. We get to work on that plan. We get to have representatives that we can work with to develop a plan and really speak into that, speak into the future. And so we think that's important to have that plan. Here's the journey. I want to give you a little history of what we've been on. This group here, we formed in April of 2023. So this has been over 2 years that we've been working on this process to bring Incorporation forward. And so we came together and said, hey, why don't we try to do this? This was actually Steve and Deb on our committee started this. And we got linked up with them later, and it just was like, hey, let's do this. I didn't, and I don't think any of us knew what we were getting into. This has been way longer than we expected to be doing this. This has been way harder. We are just, like I said, normal people. I know I can speak for my wife. She wishes, we had more of a picture of what this was going to mean. And so, but we've been doing it for 2 years, and it's been the starting point. From April 2023 to September 2024, after we notified the Pinal County supervisors, hey, we're going to try to incorporate this area, our heart was to be good neighbors to you, and as well as the neighbors around us. And part of that looks like we did public outreach. So we decided to do an initial 6 open houses for the community, where we put together a map that was going to kind of show what this area, the map would look like. And so we did this public outreach, allowed the community to be able to come together and say, hey, look at this map. What is some feedback? We don't want to force anyone into this map. In fact, we left some areas out that have been opposed to incorporation in the past, because again, we're not trying to force this onto people. And so we had this public process to try to get input, to be able to decide how to move this forward and design the map as we move the incorporation forward. Also, we reached out to the towns and cities around us. We met with every mayor and town manager or city manager from around us, from Coolidge, Florence, Apache Junction, Mesa, Gilbert, Queen Creek, and Chandler. And that was a lot of time invested to be able to organize all those meetings with those people. But we felt it was important to open the conversations with them and say, hey, we want to be a good neighbor. We want to understand what's going on. We want to let you know we're looking forward to doing incorporation and start to have those conversations early. A part of the process that we did not expect is when we put out our draft map, we were notified by the State Land Department of Arizona that they wanted us to remove all of the state land out of our map. We'll show you a map here in a little bit. There's maps around the room afterwards if you want to look at it in closer detail. But that represented about 30% of our map. And it would have made our map look like Swiss cheese. And honestly, for us, we were going for the November 2024 election and not the August 5th, 2025 election at the time. And we worked with the State Land Department to say, hey, you can't make an agreement with us. So as the Incorporation Committee, we have no binding authority to do anything. Because we're not a government authority, we don't have power over this area, we're just residents in Incorporation Committee. And so they worked with the county to entitle a couple pieces of land that we wanted to have, and we worked out a deal to get that. And it was very important for us to get those pieces of land because that area represents a lot of the commercial opportunity we have in the future. We'll talk about this in a little bit. But for us, even though it would have been easier to be done in November 2024, we delayed it to August 5th, 2025 to give the state and the county time to work that deal out. Because we felt like we're not interested in getting incorporation done for the sake of getting it done. We want to do it right. We want to give the future leaders in this community the best chance possible to be able to lead this and do the right thing going forward. And then October 2024 to April 25, we did the petition process. We had 6 months. We were required to get 6,100 signatures. We ended up getting just under 11,000 signatures. And you need to have a buffer because some people forget that they're not registered to vote or whatever. So we were very happy with that. May 2nd, 2025, the Pinal County Board of Supervisors unanimously voted to schedule this special election of August 5th to be able to give us the choice to decide our future. The next slide, we talked about the state shared revenue. It's about $50 million that is coming out of our state income tax. It's coming out of our state sales tax, it's coming out of our gas tax, and it's coming out of our vehicle license tax. And those things go into a bucket and then get spread out to all the cities and towns in the state. So the Arizona League of Cities and Towns put together a breakdown of where Santan Valley residents' money goes. And we created the top 10 on this list. And you can see at the top, Phoenix. Over $10 million of our money goes to Phoenix. $3.5 million goes to Tucson. A little over $3 million goes to Mesa. A little over $3 million goes to Maricopa. And you can see the rest there. Those that are not listed in the top 10 represent another $18 million that goes to other cities and towns throughout the state. If we incorporate, those dollars will come back here. They'll come back to us, the residents, to be able to work on our community in the future. The one that was shocking for us is the one that's highlighted in red, and that was the one in Phoenix. That was over 10 million. It makes sense given their size and population and all that. But Phoenix alone represents almost the 18 million of the rest of the cities and towns that's not in the top 10. And so we reached out to former Phoenix council member Sal DeCiccio. He was glad to endorse the incorporation effort for Santan Valley. And he gave us a quote that I'd like to read here tonight that I think is helpful. He said, "As someone who has fought for transparency and fiscal responsibility in Phoenix, I can tell you this. It makes zero sense for Santan Valley residents to send over 10 million of their taxpayer dollars every year to a city that's miles away and doesn't represent them. That money should be building your roads, your parks, and your families, not funding the politics and priorities of Phoenix. It's time for Santan Valley to invest in itself." Not only are we not able to hold our county supervisors accountable, we can't hold the other 91 cities and towns who are getting our taxpayer money accountable for the ways that they're using this money and what they're using it to fund. If we incorporate, we'll have 7 elected officials. These dollars will come here. We can hold them accountable. We can invest them here. This next slide is a map of the area. In the purple is the boundaries that we put together. On the north side of this map is Pima Road, so think Ironwood and Pima on your way out over there. And then on the west side is the Queen Creek boundaries. On the south side is basically Johnson Ranch, the southern part of Johnson Ranch, and Copper Basin. And then on the east side is the Cap Canal, Central Arizona Canal. And so that's kind of the layout of the map. In the middle, in the green, I don't know how well you can see it, in the middle of the green is 3,200 acres I talked about earlier with the State Land Department. I can actually show it here real quick. All of this here in the green is the 3,200 acres that we were able to get. This represents opportunity for commercial, a future downtown. And then down here, there was this poor little neighborhood surrounded on all sides by state land. So we worked out a deal to get that included, which then brought cohesion to the map. And so, but there will be opportunities when we've talked to the State Land Department. They're willing to annex some of the other areas that weren't included in this initial part. So all of this green down here and along the sides, they are open to having that conversation on annexing that into the Santan Valley boundaries. So not only is this important, but particularly this piece down here is important. We have 4 railroads that go through there. And this is a huge opportunity for industrial development to develop our industrial tax base. And so we have a lot of potential, a lot of opportunity in this map that we put together for the voters to be able to decide. According to 2020 U.S. Census data, there's 91,000 residents here, but there's been a lot of people that moved here being shuffled over 2020, and so we're estimating that we're north of 100,000 residents. The area, square miles, is 36.4 square miles. This is the smallest incorporation map of any of the incorporation maps, to my knowledge, and we think it's a good one. The next one is town revenue. And so the state shared revenue that we will be getting from the state, I shared a little bit about this earlier. There's 4 buckets. So when you pay your income tax, 18% of that is taken out and goes into this. It was 15, but I think it's being up to 18. And so then the Highway User Revenue Fund, this is your license. So there's that, and then the state sales tax, so every time you buy something, that comes in, and then the urban revenue sharing fund. So basically it's your gas tax, your vehicle license tax, your state tax, and then the income tax. And so that's the 4 buckets, and that represents the 50 million. Now, what are the opportunities outside this? So that's the money we'll get. The first year, by the way, the county will continue to manage everything. So until July 1, 2026, they will manage everything and pay for everything. There will be some things that the new council can start to do to get the government up and running. And so those funds will start to come in. And then town revenue, options that they could look at, not all of these are likely. The first one that comes up is property taxes. So a town could look at property taxes. This has to go before the council. The council has to decide to put it to an election. And then us, the voters, have to decide to vote to tax our own selves with property tax. And so we don't think this is going to happen. And looking at the Arizona League of Cities and Towns and their manual, one of the things they stated on property taxes is a common concern is that with incorporation, residents will see an automatic increase in their property taxes. This is not necessarily the case. Out of the last 16 incorporated towns between 1980 and 2010, only 2 have initiated a primary property tax, and only 2 have adopted a secondary property tax. 45 of the 91 cities and towns have a property tax. And so this is very unlikely, and I think in an area like ours, I would vote against this personally, and I don't think it would pass. And I think the people who would try to do this, they would lose their jobs really fast. So there's property taxes. The next option is sales tax. And so a community could decide to impose a city sales tax. This usually ranges between 1% and 3%. Council could vote to pass this. And then business and occupational license taxes. That's another option that they could look at for funding. Utility franchise tax, development fees. So when things are getting developed, there's fees as part of that. And then fines and forfeitures.
What are those?
When we're done with the presentation, we'll do questions. If you would like to send a card, you're more than welcome. All right, the next part I want to share is this picture of the 24. And so one of the things that's lacking as we talk to a lot of the communities around us is there's 100,000 people here where there's not a voice locally that can represent us. And so one of the things that the state did recently under Governor Hobbs is they removed the SR 24 funding, and which is a critical highway that needs to come down in this direction. If we incorporate, we will have a municipality that can join the regional voice to start to make some of these things happen that need to happen. The next thing I'll show you, this just came out today. Arizona Department of Transportation just put this out. They're looking to put a train that will go from Phoenix all the way down to Tucson that runs through Queen Creek and Santan Valley. And so there's these things that we have to be aware of, and to have a community that's working for us to be able to look at these issues. And so this would be a passenger rail linking Phoenix and Tucson that would go down this way. The next part I'm going to show is some concerns that we've heard from the community. We've been listening to you guys. We've been listening to the concerns that people have. And the first one that I'd like to address is a lot of people say that if we incorporate, we're not going to have police on day one or a year from now or right away. Like, nothing's going to change. In 2013, I started my own business. And I'll tell you, I didn't start that business expecting on day one, after the Arizona Corporation Commission approved my license, to have a skyscraper with my logo on it. And to have 1,000 employees, and to have trucks, and to have all those things on day one. That's just not sensible. You gotta start somewhere, okay? When I started my business, this picture that's on the screen with this computer and this desk, I had just bought my house, and didn't have much because I spent a lot of money on my house, so I didn't have a whole lot of furniture. But I had this desk, and I had a computer, and I had my brain. And I started a business. And that's how it started. If I expected to have that skyscraper, I'd be very discouraged right out the gate. But that's how it started. And then the next slide is eventually, over time, I got an office space. And I got employees. And I got more clients. And things started to grow and started to change. This should have happened 15 years ago. It's unfortunate that it hasn't. But we have to start now. Because when this area becomes 300,000 people, it's going to be really difficult. And so, to have the expectation that everything's going to change on day one, or within the first year, or the first 2 years, is not fair. And so, we have to start to move this football forward. Right now, we're sitting at the 1-yard line on the football field. We've been for 15 years. We need to pick that football up and march down to the end zone and score. And that's what we need to do. The next concern is concern for increases of taxes. Incorporation by itself does not automatically increase your taxes. You will have an opportunity to have representatives, to engage in the public process with your representatives to determine the future. The new council will initially have a budget to work with coming from the state shared revenue to get us going. That's probably going to be what we use for the first year or two, at least. And then there'll be some probably new initiatives requiring a tax increase will take time to execute and be under sharp public scrutiny. So this isn't something that's just going to be like, hey, in the night of the dark, we're just going to pass a tax increase. There'll be a public process of what that looks like. But us, the voters, will get to decide. Our position is, if we do nothing and expect that the county will not raise our taxes, we're missing the point. Like, they are running the area the size of Connecticut. They are having trouble keeping up with this area. We're over 100,000 people. They have to be able to fund to be able to continue investing in this area. They will raise taxes too. But instead of having to drive to Florence and only having one representative to advocate for you, you can drive to Santan Valley, maybe 10, 15 minutes down the street. And you can have 7 representatives who live here, who know this area, who can hear that concern. Any new tax increase will require a public meeting. And then property taxes require a public vote. Concern number 2, that we would have an unelected council coming out of the gate. So this wins August 5th. The Pinal County Board of Supervisors will appoint 7 individuals to represent the first council. They will serve after the election until, I think, probably August 2026, somewhere around there. So they'll only be here. Their job is to get this thing up and running and get it moving. There will be an election in August 2026, and correct me if I'm wrong, Alan, but that will be able to get elected representatives in there. This is a standard process of what happens when you incorporate. I covered all that. Oh, council pay. So the first council will not get paid in our view. Any council that votes on a pay increase, it votes for the next council after the next election. So these people who are appointed can't just, I'm going to pay myself $100,000 or something like that. They can't do that. It'll be the next council after the election. So these people will be serving as volunteers, and then there will be a council that would come in after them. The next concern is there's not enough funds. As we stated, there's $50 million in state shared revenue. We put together early on, not a budget. There's been claims that we have put out a budget. There's an important distinction to realize is that we are the Incorporation Committee. We are not the town of Santan Valley. And so we cannot make decisions. I can sit here and tell you, hey, we're not going to do this, or we're going to do this, or we're going to buy that, or whatever, and I'd be lying to you. Because none of us are going to be on the council unless the Pinal County Board of Supervisors were to appoint us, or even if we wanted to apply. And so the cost sheet that we put out was showing what are the things that we're required to pay. We're required to have a police force. We're required to have a place that the citizens can go to, which means we have to rent a space where somebody can go. We're required to have a city clerk so that when you come to that space, you can interact with your government and talk with the clerk. We're required to have an attorney. We're required to have a town manager. Of those things, we looked at, of the things that we were required, that we had to have, just to be able to get this thing going. Again, we're not building the skyscraper. We're at the desk, moving this thing forward. We looked at $25 million is what that would cost. And we inflated those numbers by 15 or 20% on all of it. So the sheriff's office, they told us, hey, it's going to be about $10 million a year. We put in $15 million because we wanted to be sure that we would have enough that we would give the voters the confidence in that. The unallocated funds were $25 million. So again, we're just trying to show what are we required to fund. This isn't a budget. But even if the council got in and said, hey, we need to pay more for police, we need to have more officers, or we need to have more funding for roads, or we need to do this over and above our funding, fine. There's $25 million to be able to do that. And there's other things they can look at to bring in more funding. Concern number 4, there's not enough room for retail within the map of Santan Valley. I talked about this earlier, so I won't spend a whole lot of time on it, but that green area, 3,200 acres, represents an opportunity for the commercial mixed-use industrial development that we need, as well as the outer lying areas that we can annex into this community. And so we believe we've set up this map in a way that will set the future leaders up for success in looking for retail and development. Concern number 5, that there's promises that we're making without a plan. We've been very clear, we're not the Incorporation Committee.
We are just.
Sorry, we're not the town of Santan Valley. We're the Incorporation Committee. And so we've worked hard to do our best to present a vision of what can be for Santan Valley, but not make promises, because we want to have integrity in the way that we move through this process. And so incorporation gives us the ability to make these decisions in the future. When we have a council, you and we all get to say, hey, what do we want for this community? Areas that have incorporated say, hey, this is our plan. Queen Creek, for example, one of the things is they want to cap their population at like 150,000. And that's what they set out in their general plan. They've been working on that. That's what the voters have told them. And so we get to have a voice in that process. And to be clear, we are trying to be Santan Valley. We are not trying to be Gilbert. We are not trying to be Mesa. We're not trying to be Chandler. This area is different. And so we get to have that voice to say, what does Santan Valley look like? We get the opportunity to reimagine this community for the future generations and the current ones that are here. And we can't make those decisions without a plan, without Incorporation. So Incorporation gives us the chance to be able to do that. And with that, that's all that I have. I'm going to pass it over to Allen. And then Allen is going to run through a couple of things, and then we'll open it up for questions. Thank you.
All right, guys, we've been hitting it pretty hard for about 55 minutes. I don't know if you're like me, but you might need to stand up and stretch your legs for a minute, so feel free to do that if
Thank you.
you'd like to. Just got some brief presentation I had. I wanted to share with you guys. But my name, as Tyler said, is Allen Quist. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Pierce Coleman. My law firm focuses on representing municipalities, cities, and towns across the state of Arizona. We currently serve as primary general counsel for over 20 municipalities. Before joining Pierce Coleman, I spent 7 years serving as an attorney for Pinal County. And when I was with Pinal County, I handled a variety of legal work, from prosecuting criminal cases like auto theft to advising the county board of supervisors and various county departments on legal issues. I'm a lifelong resident of Arizona, and over the past 40 years, I've watched as the Southeast Valley has grown and changed in rather remarkable ways. In particular, and like many of you, I've watched Santan Valley as it's grown from mostly rural farmlands to now a growing community. And like many of you, I've also followed these past efforts to incorporate the Santan Valley area that, for various reasons, fell short of getting to a vote of the people on the issue of incorporation. When I was approached by the Incorporation Committee a little over a year ago to see if I'd be willing to help with the effort to get incorporation on the ballot, I said yes. I said yes because I believe this public discourse on incorporation is important, and ultimately getting to this issue to a vote is long overdue. And I think this particular vote will be one of the more consequential decisions that residents within this community will make for many years. If incorporation does not move forward, if it fails to gather a majority of votes in support on August 5th, it is very unlikely that this kind of opportunity will be coming again in the near future, if at all. You heard Tyler discuss all the steps, all the process, all the negotiations with state land to get it to this point. And if it does fail, Santan Valley will continue to be this kind of in-between space, a space between Queen Creek and Florence, a space that, as Tyler said, is governed by a county, a large county, a space that doesn't maintain its own identity, its own character, its own ability to make local decisions. So tonight, I want to provide you some information and help ensure that whatever the outcome of the upcoming vote is, that it's based on an understanding of what incorporation is and what it is not. And Tyler's covered a lot, and I probably move quickly through some of the slides I have just because there is a little bit of overlap. I think he's covered most of the core issues, but hopefully some of this presentation will answer some of the questions that are out there. So what does incorporation mean actually? In big picture terms, it means transitioning from a regional county form of government to a local town form of governance. It's about choosing to bring a government closer to the people that it serves. And I personally hold conservative values, and I respect and appreciate a healthy skepticism of government. I think that is important in our democracy. But in my opinion, and I know other committee members have expressed this idea that I agree with, that this isn't really a question of more government versus less government. It's a question of where your government is based and who is making decisions that affect your streets, your neighborhoods, your taxes, and your community's future. That's what this is about. To borrow a quote, next slide there, from Thomas Jefferson. Well, it's often attributed to Thomas Jefferson. There's some debate whether he actually said these precise words, but it's certainly in keeping with his philosophies and his writings, is that the government closest to the people serves the people best. And I believe that's at the heart of this particular incorporation effort. The belief that local government is the best, that it is better than a regional form of government that's based out of Florence. And that the county just lacks the tools and the ability to effectively govern the Santan Valley area. So that's what incorporation means in broad terms. But let's, getting more to the specifics, let's say on August 5th, a majority of qualified voters vote in support of incorporation. The county elections department is then going to do a canvass or certification of the elections, and assuming it all checks out, the next step, what happens next, really, is the question. And there's a lot that's going to happen after that step. First we're going to have the appointment of the first town council, the transition of state revenue to Santan Valley. That'd be the next one. That's what Tyler talked about. We're pulling those state tax dollars that have already been taxed. We're pulling them down to Santan Valley so that they can serve us, the community. Then there's the appointment of key municipal staff. There's the establishment of county agreements and making provision for core town services. There's the establishment of the town code, zoning ordinances, and the town's general plan. And there's the exploration of other revenue sources like grants and development impact fees. So these are the key things I wanted to briefly cover with you before we get to the Q&A, because I know there are questions that you guys would like to ask. So if incorporation is approved by the voters, Arizona law says that the first step is the county board of supervisors has to meet. They have to issue an order saying that the area has been incorporated, and at that same meeting, under state law, the board of supervisors appoints an initial council. And based on the size of the town boundaries, the population, I should say, that means 7 council members. These appointees, they've got to be residents of the area that's being incorporated. They've got to be at least 18 years old. They've got to be registered to vote, all those things.
Answered that last.
And Arizona law does not describe the specific process by which those 7 appointees are appointed. In my understanding, looking at past efforts, the counties do it differently, right? In watching Pinal County, when I was serving as legal counsel for the county, based on my sense is that they would probably ask for statements of interest for those council positions, most likely. Again, I can't bind them as to what they're going to do, but that would be my assumption. And then they might narrow the pool down to some finalists and perhaps conduct interviews before those appointments are actually made. So then you have this council, this first town council. The law says that within 20 days they've got to meet. Hopefully it's even sooner than that, but they've got to meet and select the first mayor. Importantly, this first council and all subsequent councils are going to be bound under what's known as Arizona's open meeting laws, Arizona's conflict of interest laws, and these things mean, among many other things, that when they're conducting town business, they've got to do it in public. They've got to agendize what they're going to talk about to give everyone notice in advance of that meeting, and then allow the public to come, and there's typically a public comment period as part of those council meetings. And that's to promote transparency so that the public is in the know and involved in what is going on for the community. So that's the first council, and then you'll have, let's see, and then there will be the election, the primary, the general, August, November 2026 would be when the first elected council would, there'd be that process, the election, and then they would be seated. If they win the primary, I believe it'd be by the general or possibly in January. So they're going to be seated late 2026. So the next thing that has to happen is that state revenue transition. And I think Tyler covered this pretty well. And we just pull those down. So we've got all those various taxes that the state is already imposing, right? And so these are the sources of revenue that this new municipality is going to have to apply for, is going to have to get census data, and is going to have to work with the state to make sure those funds begin to be redirected to Santan Valley. And depending on which category of tax, state tax this is, determines the timeline as to when Santan Valley would start receiving those funds. All right, and then we have, this is occurring probably, I'm trying to kind of order it maybe sequentially, but this is all happening quickly. We're trying to set up a municipality, so there's going to be appointments of key positions. The town manager is, in my opinion, going to be one of the most important positions in the various municipalities we represent. Sorry, am I blocking your view?
I just want to take pictures.
Oh, sure.
Tell people the right thing.
Okay, yeah, I'll step out of your way.
No,
But
you don't have to get that far.
you don't want my ugly bug in the picture.
No,
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
not trying to be rude.
No, you're fine. No, you're fine.
Will you be our next town attorney? Our next town attorney?
No, I would love to do that. I think we are qualified to do that. We represent over 20 cities and towns. I think that would be, I'm ideally situated to do that. I've worked with the county, and I've got the connections with the county to help get the town up and running. So, and it wouldn't be just me. It'd probably be, other members of my firm as well that would assist. But again, that's not a decision that can be made at this point. None of these positions can be filled. It's going to be the new council that makes these decisions. And town manager is a huge one because sometimes your municipalities may be compared to, if it was compared to a business, a corporation, the town manager is effectively kind of the CEO, or is going to have a lot of operational knowledge, and the council is going to be kind of like the board of directors that make the final decisions and set the policies and the procedures and the codes. So that town manager is an important position. The town clerk is. The town attorney obviously is going to be important. You might want to look at getting a finance director as well to start managing the town funds. All right. So next step would be county agreements and core services. So as Tyler stated, under Arizona law, the county has to continue to provide core services all the way through June 30th of 2026. And that gives the new town some time to get its legs underneath it. It gives it time to form contracts, perhaps with the town, like with the sheriff's office. We're probably, most likely going to need to continue to have the sheriff provide services for at least a few years, right, as the town is being established. And that's done through what are called IGAs, intergovernmental agreements with other entities like the county. Okay, so the next step as part of this process is we're going to have the establishment of town codes, the zoning ordinances, and the town's general plan. And a lot of these codes, these regulations, the new town can adopt other codes by reference. We can say, hey, we're just going to follow the county's code, and we're going to modify it as we grow, as we get our legs underneath us. Right. Finally, there's the other possible sources of revenue. There's grant funding, and I've got to say that a good grant coordinator, a person that knows how to apply for grants is very valuable for a municipality. They can pull down a lot of state and federal funds to assist in municipal operations. There's the potential for local sales tax. And I know there's been some confusion on the issue of whether local sales tax can or cannot be approved directly by council versus going to a vote of the people. I know that the committee has historically taken the position that it can be approved by just a council vote through an ordinance. And then there was a county event in which a panelist indicated that no sales tax required a vote. I subsequently looked at it further, and I came to the opinion that under Arizona law, it does not require a public vote. It requires a vote of council only. We reached back out to the panelist, and he indicated that he agreed after reviewing further with that assessment. So a sales tax can be passed by the council. Property taxes, as Tyler indicated, those have to be approved by a vote of the people, and those are the ones that people have concerns about. Like, how is this going to increase my property taxes? That's a big question. And as Tyler indicated, a lot of the recently incorporated towns and cities have not went forward with property taxes. And then, of course, there's development fees. There's other sources of revenue that a new municipality can look at. So, so as you can see, incorporation is not a small step. It's a significant milestone for a community. It means creating a framework of self-governance, establishing local control, and choosing what kind of community you would like to form. And just kind of going back to that Jefferson, the statement that's attributed to Jefferson, whether or not he's actually said it is debatable. The government closest to the people serves the people best. And whether you ultimately vote yes or no this August, my hope is that discussion, that decision will ultimately be based on an understanding of what incorporation means, what it entails, and ultimately we just got to trust the democratic process and let you, the voters, decide if you want to incorporate or not. It's entirely up to you. So, thank you.
Let me ask some questions. I can speak loudly. Yeah, that might be helpful. Can everyone hear me? Yeah? No? Kinda? I'm not very loud, so I'm sorry. I'll try to project. So the first couple of questions I have here are more about how this is structured. So to begin with, is this a city or is it a town? In the presentation, it referenced town, but maybe you can discuss the difference. And then alongside that, if it is a town, will you have to create a 5-year plan within the first year, or was the timeline for the town or city to create a 5-year plan? So kind of two questions rolled into one.
I can take the first one.
And maybe can you reiterate, let's summarize before.
So the first question was, is it a city or a town? And what's the difference? So when we submitted our petition to incorporate to Pinal County, we submitted our petition to incorporate as a town. And that's what it says on the ballot. That's what the initiative says. Do you want to allow Santan Valley to incorporate as a town called Santan Valley, Arizona? And the difference between a city and a town in Arizona isn't very significant. They have basically all of the same functions, all of the same responsibilities, and all of the same funding sources. The primary difference is that a town has to have at-large council members. What an at-large council member is you don't have town council districts. You have council members that represent the entire area. And that means that if you want to run for town council, you have to campaign not just in Johnson Ranch, not just in Copper Basin. You also have to go to Little Mexico. You have to go up to Pecan Creek. You have to campaign all over because you get voted on by everybody. That's all 7 council members. If you are a city, you can also be at-large council members. You can also have a charter. And the main difference between a town and a city is that a city can have a charter. A charter is like a constitution. It's a set of rules that the town will, or the city will follow. It can't make any laws that violate that charter. And while that is a good thing, it's not the best thing for representation to start with, because what the charter can also do is it can establish council districts. And we don't believe that council districts are the best thing for Santan Valley right away, because that would mean that we have these population areas where if one area had a single council member, there'd be 6 other council members that could outvote them. And that's the situation we're in right now with Pinal County. We have 1 supervisor and then 4 other supervisors that say, well, overall for the county, turning this corner that was going to be a commercial development, turning that into residential and putting houses there is better for the county overall, regardless of how good it is for Santan Valley. We don't want that to happen, so we chose to incorporate as a town, and then it would be up to the town council and the voters to say, no, we want to be a city. And then it would be up to the city and the voters to say, no, we want to adopt a charter and we want to establish council districts. We wanted to put hurdles in the way of creating those council districts. So I can't answer the 5-year plan thing.
Yeah, and Adrian, I think, nailed the question about the differences between charter cities, regular cities, and towns, which is what the incorporation would be, is to a town form of governance. And there's very few differences actually between town and city. Quite a bit more of a difference between a charter city and other forms. But as far as the plan, I assume that's referring to the new town's general plan, which is basically the aspirational goals and plans for development, primarily. It kind of sits as this overarching layer. You have your general plan, and then underneath that you have your zoning, which is more on a micro level. So the general plan, that is going to take some work to establish that. It's got to be actually ratified by voters. It's going to be a pretty extensive process to establish that general plan, but it will be occurring within the first couple years of incorporation for sure.
Okay, so we have several questions here about development. Just generally, could you speak more about how development already works and how it would change if we were incorporated, how it could affect housing development versus road development versus if we have public transit out here? And then I guess the third piece is just generally maybe talk a bit about how zoning works and what the difference would be if we were incorporated.
So, in Allen started talking about this in the general plan, and then you go into zoning. And through zoning, you can sort of put guidelines around the character of a community and what it looks like. So for a small time, I served on the Pinal County Planning and Zoning Commission, and there are areas set aside for residential, there's areas set aside for industrial, areas set aside for commercial. And often what has happened, and it's a mixed bag, sometimes the supervisors vote against it, sometimes they don't. But when I was on that commission, there was a couple projects where an area was set aside as commercial, and a developer comes in and says, we want to build an apartment complex, multi-housing there, and they would change that development or that zoning so they could then build an apartment complex. One of the things that we were trying to work on that commission, and what we talked about often got outvoted, is those from Santan Valley say, hey, it's all right to have some houses or some apartments, but too many we don't want. And more importantly, we need more commercial out here. So don't take away our commercial space. But oftentimes we were outvoted on those issues. And for example, one of the examples I can remember right on top of my head, on Hunt Highway, there's a Circle K, a Dairy Queen, whatnot. There's a new apartment complex going behind that. That was a commercial spot that changed to housing. And we also know that there's some attempts where the Winco is going to change that into the apartment complex, but that one actually got defeated in that case, and now it's a Winco is going in and moving. So that generally, that's one of the ways that you can affect the way some of the development that comes in here is through zoning. So you can set some parameters. This is the type of development we want in this corner. And that's the one way you can lead direction. And so also with transportation, I think you brought up, one of the things that is lacking out here is you allow developers just to build up their development without any sort of long-term vision for through roads. So there are places in Santan Valley where there should be a through road, but there's not. You have to wind through development. Those are the type of things that a city at a town council could say, no, we're going to set this aside for a through street. We're going to have a grid where we can move traffic around. I think any sort of public transit, I think you mentioned, not going to happen. I think you got to get a hold of the roads. Other than ADOT, it sounds like today says that they want to put a train through Santan Valley. And that's the other thing. That may or may not be a good thing if you want to move down to Tucson or going to Phoenix. But I think we need a voice to make sure that we understand how that's going to affect us, and we can push back on some of that where it might make sense, where it does not make sense. So I don't know if did I get some of that?
Yeah, I think maybe you could speak a bit more on like how incorporation will change existing development. Like someone brought up that like there's already road construction.
Yeah, that's true.
Someone brought up
Okay.
that like land is already being
A
developed.
lot of the development that's already here is already here. And so that is a great argument. We should have incorporated 15 years ago. But as Tyler and others have talked about tonight, the growth's only going to continue, so you have to try to get ahead of that. So we've been behind the curve trying to catch up with infrastructure because it was kind of a hodgepodge growth out here. This development one came in, okay, we'll let this one go in here, but that's sort of creating a broader plan. And so, yeah, current development is here, but there is still a lot to be undeveloped. That's what we showed by our maps. There's a lot to be that's still undeveloped. There's still a lot of corners that have commercial still available, so you can still affect some of those corners that are underdeveloped. So there's still a lot the council can take control over, and that big chunk in the middle, as well as on the fringes, as Tyler talked about. So a lot of the development is here, but there's ways that you can mitigate and work towards and have a vision for the future, future development, for sure.
And also just building off of that, someone had asked, so if an area is already zoned for development, like maybe there's a project but it hasn't started yet, can the city council, like the new one, affect projects that haven't started, or is it over, like it's gonna get built without
that's a good
consideration?
So there's this thing in urban development called platting. And what platting is when a surveyor goes out and it draws the metes and bounds of a particular piece of property at the request of the landowner for the purpose of zoning. And when they go out and they plat the land, they draw up parcels and they register those parcels with the assessor's office, and then they get assessed as taxable property. Once that is done for, say, a residential area, it's kind of locked in. The owner themselves has to say, oh, I want to replat this and rezone it to commercial. There is a lot of land in Santan Valley that is open land right now that has already been platted. There are subdivisions in place. Those subdivisions have had parcels created on them, and they've been parcels for years. And that is development that is already going to happen, and the new town can't stop that. And it's unfortunate, but again, we need to have a comprehensive urban development plan and a transportation plan that goes in and says, okay, if we're going to put houses here, they've already determined where the right-of-ways are. They've already determined the right-of-ways are where the roads are going to be. The easements are where the utilities are going to be. Now we have to figure out how do we get people in and out of those neighborhoods. And that's what hasn't been done, is we haven't developed a comprehensive transportation plan that says once we put those people there, how are we going to get them in and out? How are we going to get emergency services to them? How are we going to, they're going to get utilities, but do they have enough fire hydrants in order to handle fires in the area? Do we have enough fire stations close enough to those areas? And we know we don't. So we have to have a comprehensive plan to put that together. The county isn't doing that. The county doesn't have the capacity to do that. They don't have the ability to keep up with all of the new development that's going on, but a municipal government can.
Okay, thank you. So building off of that, like you mentioned, transportation planning and zoning and development, but there's a few questions here about funding. So first, like one specific question is about funding for schools, like how is the town responsible for the school system? And then also another question brought up all the things that do need to be funded, from emergency services, permitting, inspectors, plan reviews, insurance, vehicles. So maybe you could speak a bit about how the town will be able to fund everything, and like what you all have jurisdiction over funding versus what is up to other services.
Yeah, I'm going to sing first. What we did, Tyler referred to it earlier, were the essential costs. We looked at 6 or 7 cities, actually 6 cities, and we studied their 22, 23, and 24. They were proposed budgets at the time for 24. We looked at all of those cities and their budgets and what they spent on the essential and the necessary resources that a incorporated town would need to offer at the very beginning of incorporation. Those incorporated cities were between 15,000 and 150,000 residents. So we actually went through line by line by line and assessed what would be required for our essential costs to manage our town. That's how we got to the $25 million that we believed were essential costs that we could in fact be able to manage the city to start. As Tyler also mentioned, that the shared revenue is much more than $25 million. It's the north side of $50 million. So on top of that, there was still $25 million that really were unallocated, but we added in, we had a city, an attorney, the 4 or 5 line items that Alan mentioned were absolutely within our essential costs. And then again, we budgeted 15 to 20% higher just for inflation and those kinds of things. So that's how we got to the number that we believe is a relatively accurate number to start the city. And I don't, Laura, remember the other part of the question. I apologize.
Yeah, maybe you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the answer about schools is the schools are basically run by the state school districts and the education supervisor. So the as a community, we might have a say in how the infrastructure is built to better support the schools that we have, but we will not be controlling the schools. No city in Arizona controls the school system.
So quick, simple question. Is a vote decided by a simple majority? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, is the vote decided by a simple majority? Yeah. Maybe just repeat that.
Yeah, so the question was, is the vote decided by a simple majority? So yes, that's a simple majority of votes cast.
My question is, like, property like Encantera that's been annexed into Queen Creek, yet it's surrounded by the town of Santan, if this goes through, what happens to them?
It's not. It's actually not surrounded by Santan Valley. It's the Santan Valley map kind of surrounds portions of it like an amoeba,
Okay.
and it's going to continue to be Queen Creek.
Okay. So there's just some general concerns about, I guess, like why people are opposed to incorporation. I know you discussed it a little bit. And then also just the incorporation's efforts, connections to outside interests, and how maybe funding or other people are influencing y'all's actions, and yeah, and how that's factoring into decision making.
So 70% of our donors are Santan Valley residents, and the rest of our donors are businesses and organizations that do business inside of Santan Valley. And as far as the influence that those businesses have, they have as much influence over what we're doing as each and every one of you do. They get to...
We didn't give you $5,000.
We didn't ask you for $5,000. We asked you for whatever you do.
So the question, can we just ask the question without the...
Yeah, you can ask it.
I appreciate that. So the Rose Law Group brought us propositions, SB 1611 and HB 2753, which allows them to, all these HOAs, pump their crap water and treat it and pump it straight to our aquifers. The Rose Law Group is all about bringing these apartment complexes, HOAs to our communities. You can see we're filled with them. I mean, when I came out here and moved and bought my own 15 years ago, there was nothing up where I lived. Now they brought these HOAs right up to my farm. And they brought that curtain to bring the crap water. I didn't know about this until recently. Jordan Rose says she can get you guys to do anything she wants. I got the video right here if you guys want me to play it.
What's your question?
How are we to trust you guys when you're backed by outside Maricopa County lobbyists?
You don't need to trust us. We're not the city council. We're volunteers presenting this initiative. So I think it's really important to be clear about this. We're a volunteer group who believe it's essential to incorporate the community in which we live. We have no authority to make rules, laws, draft charters, make decisions. Let me finish, please. Make decisions about your community. Our only goal was to be able to present this initiative for all of you to vote yes or no. We have nothing to do with how the city or the town will proceed in the future unless one of us, some of us, maybe none of us, either applies for city council or doesn't. So I just want to make that really clear, because there will be things you will ask, and I've read several of them on your questionnaire sheet here, that we can't answer because we are not that elected body. We're not elected officials and we're not appointed
You're
yet.
like, if we wanted to be, you just said if we wanted to be or apply. So
It doesn't matter.
Can
Yeah.
you be honest now? Each one of you raise your hand if you want to be on our town council or a mayor. No. Okay, good. So there's going to be 7 other different people.
Nobody's saying that. For me,
Well, so tell us now. See, this is why there's no honesty. Every time I ask a question online, it's a fear mongering. One of these 100 questions. Every time I ask them, oh, you're fear mongering. You don't tell us the truth, and you're hiding behind Maricopa Town. It's obvious. We got questions, right? I don't want to drink shit water. I don't want you crapping in your toilet and ending up on my face, man. That's not the county I moved into. When I moved in here, we didn't have that. Rose Law Group has a 16-year plan, right? Her 16-year plan includes this whole area filled with HOAs. It's in her plan. I got it in her words. What do you guys got to say about that?
So let me tell you, the current system under the county, because as we've talked about, they have a large county, a lot of growth. It's the jurisdiction with the most growth. They trade turns with Phoenix for the most building permits, and I think this last couple of years, Pinal County has had more building permits than any other jurisdiction in the state. I would say, my argument is, under the current system, the status quo, the developers have had it pretty good, because they go buy land and the county allows them to develop. And we're not telling them you have to have a through street through your neighborhood, or you're going to have to work with a regional perspective. And so they've been able to do it. Growth is good, development is good, it's a positive thing. But you need to have a regional vision. You need to have a perspective. You need to have that local control to minimize some of the concerns you're bringing up, Mr. Malton. So, but we don't have that under the current system. So if you really want to allow developers to do their thing, and again, I think development is good, but it needs to have some constraints. It needs to have a vision. It needs to have a broader perspective, and we don't have that right now. That's what Incorporation brings you. It brings you a council of 7 who are going to fight for you and argue for you and allow this control so we can create some vision, put some parameters, something that's good for the region and not just one specific neighborhood of a developer. It would be helpful if we went through our system with questions, so we're not just doing it back and forth. That's what I was.
Oh, can you let her ask a question?
I'm going to stand up because I'm short, but I want to tell you people, I really appreciate all the work you've done. I was in favor when it came around the first round, and it didn't happen. I don't see a lot of the same people here, but maybe there are. I don't know that we're involved in that. I came here with an open mind.
Yeah.
It's too late. I might not remember anything. That's why I was so sure. Sorry.
Thank you.
I hope you all heard me that I wanted to thank everyone for the work they've done. You laughed, and that's good. I'm here with an open mind because I think we have to be, and the questions that you have, Mr. Malton, are many, and they're not bad questions. They're all good questions. But we can't get into the minutia tonight. We are not going to be able to get those answers from these people. They're not
I
going
can't
to.
get a yes vote. Sorry.
Well, that's your choice. We live in America. I just wanted to go forward, but I want everybody's questions answered. We won't all be happy. Some of us might not like it, but first we got to get there. And then we can start arguing over the details. That's my opinion. That's all this represents.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a comment about the question that was asked of the committee, if they have an intention to participate in an appointed or an elected government. And quite frankly, I don't blame them for not answering, and I don't perceive it as dishonesty. And the reason I don't is because if that is what any one of the folks sitting in front of the room would like to do, they have as much right to do that as any one of you in this room do as well. So if that is their intention, that's their personal decision, and I don't feel they owe me an answer to that question right now. However, if they do, and I hear their story, and I learn more about them, I will vote for them. If they're appointed, I will have to trust that they'll do the best they can in the first year. In the second year, I don't know you gentlemen in the orange shirt. If you would like to vote for council, you have as much right as any of those people sitting in the front. So I'm pretty active on the social media sites, and I see that as a common question. Be honest, tell us, are you really doing this to be on the council? What if they are? That's their right, just as it is ours. So I'm kind of defending you a little bit in that regard, but have at it.
With these elections and these elected positions, how long are terms typically? 4 years or 2 years? Or?
So they're typically 2 years. However, there is a mechanism to change it to you can have 4 years, but I believe that has to be done by a vote, a public vote. So the standard is 2.
Did everyone hear that?
And most jurisdictions, a lot of jurisdictions have done it, changed it to 4 years, and they'll have staggered terms because there's a belief that having not a complete turnover of the council, there's value in having some institutional knowledge carried to the new council. So that's a common thing.
Anyone else? Questions?
All right, well, we'll be here, so feel free. There's maps. We're happy to answer questions, get to meet you guys. I'd love to meet you.
We did bring some. We did have some handouts that we have. I know there are other handouts going out with some questions for us. And
Yeah, I think.
take those as well,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
those did not come from the committee, but the committee did have handouts in the back.
I'm sure I did, right?
Yeah, you can ask them directly. That might be easier.
Solid on both sides, I think that's it. Yep, thank you.
I mean, these are really important.
Oh no, they're great
You
questions.
didn't get, well, why didn't you ask them?
Because it was supposed to end at 7:30.
I knew you guys were going to do that. They're long-winded over that.
Yeah, I mean, you can go ask them directly if you would like. Yeah, I was doing my best.